So starting a new list basically is when you have a new publishing house that are diversifying or they're buying a list. This is now in the example of Penguin Random House and Lapa Publishers. So say for example, they are diversifying. They have been doing English publications for quite some time. They have a lot of international and a little bit of local authors. They've done a few Afrikaans titles, but not necessarily so successfully. So now they've acquired this list from Lapa Publishers. So they're diversifying into that market even further, and they are developing that list even further. All right, so that's one way of doing it. Another one is when you start a new list. So say, for example, you have been doing non-fiction. You've mostly done memoirs, biographies, and historical books, but now you're actually thinking of starting a new list in political exposés and investigative journalism because now of all the big trends of political publishing. So you're thinking of maybe going into that. So now you have to start a new list. Now you have to think, where on earth do I start with this list? Because first of all, I need titles, I need manuscripts, I need authors. Now your systems are already in place, all right? Because you are already working at a publishing house. You know there are contracts, you know how you do things, how long it takes, there's a production schedule, but you need to know where to start. Okay, first thing, it needs to link with your publishing philosophy or what your company is, what the brand is. It needs to go with that. You can't now go and acquire or solicit a manuscript, commission a manuscript on a specific topic if it doesn't really go with what your company is trying to do. So first of all, it needs to link with a current list. That is why I asked you guys in your assignment for section B, I said, go and have a look at the publishing houses list. Have they done this kind of book before? Because if they've done it before, it means they have the resources, it means they have the know-how, they possibly have the market as well. When it's something completely new, you need to understand that there's going to be extra investment in terms of human resources, of time, of finances, of maybe doing a little bit of market research to get to this new market. All right, because you are maybe knowledgeable in your field, like your memoirs, your biography, and your history, but maybe there's more of a competitive market now in the political expose, investigative journalism, media pieces. All right, so it has to link with the current list. Then we get to you need to conduct proper market research. Once again, I cannot emphasize the fact that this is really, really important, that you need to have proper market research. Know who the market is, because it's one thing if you publish books for memoirs, and yes, it's true that this market overlaps. It may be, who is your typical biography, memoirs kind of person who will buy those kinds of books, but then it's very dependent on the figure that you are actually concentrating on. Is it a celebrity? I mean, reading Rihanna's biography and reading the biography of some other old political refugee is quite different, if you'd agree with me. So it's not to say that just because you're doing biographies that you have a specific market. Who you are featuring as your person of interest is very important. So what is the tone and the vision and the mission for publishing these books? All right, then that has to go with that. You have to go and do market research. You're already publishing for a specific market. Go to that market that you're already publishing for and ask them a few questions about whether they would be interested in purchasing and reading about political exposés. If yes, what kinds of things would they like? Give them options. Would they like to know more about, political figures in the media? Or would they like to know more about government institutions? Would they like to know more about conspiracy theories? All those kinds of things. Go into, your market research, but first start with what you've got. That's always the first point of action. Start where you're at. You already have a list. Maybe you have a subscribers list on your newsletters that you can already send a survey to. Start with those people. Have a little focus group. Go and read up on the bigger environment, in the bigger context of Who is publishing political exposés at the moment and why? What are people's reactions to it? Go and look on online forums and discussions. Go and look at reviews of books. Try and find your position within this. Because if you're going to start a new list, it should be that it's not been done before, or yours is going to be extremely different from the other one, or yours is going to add value. You cannot just go and publish and start a new list just because everyone is now interested in it. Remember, the more people are interested, the more competitors there would be as well. This can be a good and a bad thing, but this is something that we need to discuss. All right, so you need to conduct proper market research before you just start a list, because we all have ideas, but whether these ideas are actually viable and will work in a certain market context, that is what you need to go and determine. And as I said, it needs to fit with the brand. Otherwise, there will be a disconnect between the brand's message of what you're trying to say. All right. Starting a new list. All right. Why would we start a new list? Why would we start a new list? Now, number one, you'll start a new list when you see, obviously, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity. People are reacting to something. And then you identify a gap and you see via market research that this has been done. And why? You know why? What are people's responses? The second reason would be you're adding value. You want to add value to your current list. Maybe you have big author names that you can sign with starting this new list. And that would, up the status of your brand or your imprint at this publishing house. It will also make you look good. All right, let's not kid ourselves. You want to look good as well. But it will add value to the list. Will it be, add substance to the list? Will it be a profitable author? Sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about the social objective more than the business objective. I do think a lot of commissioning editors make decisions based on, very subjective social kind of persuasions. They'd rather publish this because this is now a very contentious subject and they want to become part of the conversation or the debate and guide thinking and ways of doing things rather than, this is a good book and this is going to make us money. So it depends on where your company's position is at. Diversification. All right. Diversification is not only just about the list. It could be that, yes, as I said, now you're in nonfiction and you're just putting a little subgenre in, but it can sometimes be something drastical. Like you usually publish adult nonfiction books. Now you want to start publishing children's books, but fiction books. So that's kind of a drastic diversification. Or is it that you're a publishing company, but you want to add now a printing leg to it or a consulting leg to it or a graphic design component to it? All right. You also want to start a new list if you want to manage revenues. Maybe some of your other lists are not doing as well as it should. That's always a big decision that you need to weigh up in terms of risk and costs. What will be your return on investment? Because you are investing a lot in creating a new list, but then your market research and your projection should be solid so that you know that it would be a profitable or a good outcome. Right. It might be that this is really a good gap that you've seen, and this might add extra revenue to maybe subsidize other books that you're publishing that are not faring as well or not doing as well. Right. Will your decision maybe to start a new list be based on you want to dominate the market? All right. It might be that if we publish more of this or I'm going to do this list, then it means that I will surely be dominating the market because I already have a 40% share of the market, trade market. If I add this list as well, it will mean that I will dominate the market. And that's exactly what Steve Connolly of Penguin Random House South Africa said in that meeting. I can't remember if I actually shared the audio. I'll try and remember to do that. But where he said Lapa maybe only have, say for example, 12 or 20% of the market, but Penguin has 40, say for example. Then when they add Lapa's list to there, then it immediately increases their market share, right? So then they are dominating the market. It's all about creating monopolies. And there's a big discussion and debate going on about that as well, in terms of Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? What does this do to variety of publications and books available in the market if it's dominated by 2 or 3 big multinational companies? And then obviously another thing that you need to think about when you start a new list is the cost factors and investment. As I said, can you weigh this up? Will you actually be able to have a return on investment, or will it just be, I'm just putting all this money in and I actually have no guarantee of whether this is going to work or not? And remember, if you're owned by a bigger company, or you have stakeholders, or you maybe have investors in your company, you need to answer these questions, and you need to prove that you've done your bit and that this was actually a good idea to start this new list. Because you don't want to start a new list and then in a month's time you're like, oopsie, this is not working, or 6 months or years down the line and a year down the line, and think that, oh, we need to revise our strategy because actually we're not doing that well, we're closing down this brand, which would look terrible for class, I would say, etc.